Has it started?
Is it the right one? I'm waiting for Ops Network. Are you sure you're in the right one?
Yes, because people are commenting.
Okay, we've actually
Yes.
And everything we just said is that. Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Hi. Oh, I can see. Okay. Hello, Abisola. Hi, Kenny. Yes, they can see us. Sorry, we weren't sure if you had started. Yes, good to, welcome everyone. Can you also hear us? Just let us know if you can hear us as well. Okay, Yetunde is here as well. Okay, awesome. Okay, everyone can hear us. Okay, we'll just get started right away. Hello everyone and welcome to our first Fireside chat as the Outstanding Professionals Network. And my name is Bimsola Ojo. I currently work as a cloud DevOps engineer in Accenture UK, and I'm very passionate about technology, empowering tech professionals, and that's the reason why we're here today. And today we have two special guests, who will be sharing their experience with you, sharing their journey and answering, some very important questions that we get asked all the time. So today I have with me Nuesiri and Okoh. So if you're excited to have them, please, let's see your dancing in the chat box. Let's see your dancing in the chat box. Yeah, so I'll just ask them to introduce themselves. So please, can you kindly introduce yourself?
Alright, hello everyone. I'm Nuesiri. I'm Nigerian. I grew up in Lagos. I did my first degree in University of Ibadan. Shout out to you, University of Ibadan.
UI, we all finished from UI.
Where I studied petroleum engineering for my first degree, and then I went to Institut Français du Pétrole in France, where I did my master's in Reservoir Geoscience and Engineering. Since I finished my master's, I've gone on to work for Total, and currently I work for BP as a petroleum engineer.
Thank you so much, Estee. That was really good. So, Frances, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Frances Okoh. I grew up in Ibadan, specifically Bodija. I studied at the University of Ibadan. I studied industrial and production engineering. I currently work as a software engineer at Goldman Sachs International.
Cool. Thank you so much, Estee and Frances. It's so good to have you here. I forgot to say, I also grew up in Ibadan and I also went to University of Ibadan. I studied mechanical engineering. So we kind of have an interesting, journey, having studied in University of Ibadan and, continuing our career journey in technology. So we have a lot of questions that we get asked all the time. People in our shoes that, have studied in Nigeria, have, gone through the Nigerian academic system, and then are working in the UK, we get asked a couple of questions all the time. So today, we are just giving everyone the opportunity, to hear the answers to these questions. And then, of course, feel free to ask your questions as well in the chat, box. And once I finish the questions that we already have, we'll go into the questions that you guys have for us today. So I hope you guys are excited. I can already see some chats that you're excited to learn, you're excited to be here. So yes, we are also excited to have you. Thank you once again. So Estee and Frances, the very first question that I have for you today, let me just pull it out, is, what exactly, can you just shed a bit more light about what you do, basically just your role and, how that is related to tech, just very briefly.
All right, so I'm still very much a petroleum engineer, and I just want to quickly debunk this tech role thing. I feel like every role is a tech role, just saying. So I work in production technology in BP, and simply put, what we're doing is digitizing our workflows to make it more efficient.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So your role is what?
I'm still a petroleum engineer. That's the title of my role.
Okay, but you still do
But-
business.
But basically, if I look at what I do on my from my day to day, it's kind of, I would say it's kind of like a business analyst role.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. And very briefly to Frances, just your role.
It's basically just the software engineering role within the finance space. So we just build applications to ensure that our customers are satisfied.
Okay, and of course that's what we know as coding, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the word that we've used for today. So, in their roles, the good thing is that even as Essay is a petroleum engineer, she actually codes, and Frances also as software developer also codes. So, and that's the reason why we've tagged this as coding without a computer science background. How does that even work? And it's not like it's completely different anyway. We all studied engineering, so definitely still within the same range of field. But when we're doing core engineering, we're not really exposed to the software development side of things, which is now getting a lot more popular, and which is what almost every field is becoming a technology field, because there is some level of software development that is now required in almost every field. I mean, that is the future, and that's the reason why we are here today. So the next question I'll just ask is, having finished from universities in Nigeria, studying engineering, now continuing into technology fields, core development roles and all of that, like, what transferable skills would you say, what skills have you been able to transfer from being in a different culture, I would say, even in Nigeria, and and then coming into the UK and then working and excelling at your jobs? By the way, you guys are excelling at your jobs. so Esther, would you like to
Okay, I'll try to keep it really short and sweet. First of all, pardon me, because I come from a technical background, because I studied engineering, right? So with engineering comes math and statistics. And for me, those two have those are like the ones that I can outrightly pick on and say, yes, those are transferable skills. But the reason why I'm saying this, I just want you to know that it doesn't really matter. I think everybody knows a little bit of math, but most importantly, I think the ability to solve problems and think logically is the key to unlocking the coding world. The moment you're able to analyze a problem, you need to be able to have that analytical skill. And I think everybody has it. You just really need to dig in a little bit deeper. So I'll give you an instance here. It's just the way we go through life. I think our brain is like a computer, and we go through life solving problems on the go. But our brain is like that super efficient computer that understands the language, our language, which is English or whatever language, right? So take, for example, I have the problem of putting peanut butter and jelly on toast. That is a problem. But the moment I tell you, or Frances, I say, Frances, for example, how would you put peanut butter and jelly on toast?
So I get my peanut butter container, I try to turn it. If it doesn't turn, then first of all, if it turns, I open it, then I scoop my butter and I put it on my toast. If it doesn't turn, then I need another tool. Maybe I need a cloth for more grip, or I need more power to turn the lid, and then I scoop my peanut butter jelly and
Put it on the toast. But if I asked you, she kind of answered it from maybe a little bit of a coding aspect.
Yes.
But if I asked you as a layman, I said, how would you be like, I'll just take the bread, take the butter, and you just put it on.
Yeah.
You've skipped a whole lot of steps, right? But in the coding world, you're trying to tell something that is dumb. In actual sense, the computer is actually dumb.
Yeah.
So you have to spell it out line by line. Literally, when you tell the computer, open the jar, it's like, how do I open the jar? So typically what you have to do, what is required, is for you to be able to take a problem, that huge problem, break it down into smaller bits, and that's where your analytical and creative thinking comes into play.
Yeah.
And then you break it down into smaller problem, bit by bit by bit, and before you know it, you've written a code. So coding, in its sense, is not actually the language. It is actually a process of breaking down your problems into bite-sized information that a dumb person in quotes can understand.
That is so profound, Essay. Thank you so much for that. So one of the major skills is your critical thinking, your logical reasoning skills. That's what you've transferred. Frances, would you like to Yeah. You know.
So in addition to that, I would say, in addition to your problem solving skills, I think your soft skills are also very important. Skills like your grit, the ability. Yeah. So I personally would define grit as the ability to stay, to have staying power, even when it gets hard. Because there are some times where you could be faced with very challenging problems, and even after breaking them into smaller bits, it still doesn't make sense. So it's the ability to stay there and, you know, keep trying to find out what the optimum solution would be. Another thing I would say is also your people skills. It's very, very important. Knowing when to reach out, knowing how to leverage your network and people around you to be able to solve problems is actually very important, because not one person doesn't know everything. And I would also say knowing how to leverage resources, Google, Stack Overflow, just learning how to reach through massive information very, very quickly and picking out what is needed to be able to solve your own problem. I feel like those are skills that are very, very necessary.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add in terms of from academic world into the work life, particularly into coding?
I think Frances really hit the nail on the head, saying like you really need grittiness, but at the same time, I think you also need a growth mindset. Not boxing yourself in, because you need to really, really be creative. And don't say, oh, I'm not creative because I don't know how to dance. I don't know. That's not creativity.
That's true.
People normally term creativity as people who know how to paint. It's not about that. It's about allowing your brain explore to its maximum potential. You know, it's
I like that.
It's giving your, because truth to be told, we don't maximize our brain a lot. We just kind of limit it to what we already know or what we think we already know. But there's so much you can do. You just need to keep pushing at it, talking at it, and then it will definitely expand on it. And that's something you really need, especially when you're moving from our continent of Africa, moving here. You need to really be open. You need to really be open. And because one thing that I think may hold people back is the way in which we were taught and the way we grew up to learn things. It's kind of different in the Western world. And so you need to have that open mindset of allowing new information come through. You know, you need to have that and see life as an experiment and not being afraid to fail. So I'll just
amazing.
Say,
okay.
In addition to what she said, learning to fail fast. Like when you fail at something, quickly pick yourself up and move on. Like failing is not the end of the world. Usually. So feel fast and go forward.
I mean, I really like that. I really like everything you guys have said. And honestly, the idea of failing fast, it just resonates so much with me, because I think that's the only thing that's helped me in my career. And that's what I would say I really found different from the academic world. Because I feel like the academic world doesn't really reward failure. It doesn't reward mistakes, you know. It's like you have just one go at things, and if you don't get it right, you know, that's it. But the good thing about the work life is that you have your time. You have time when you're coding, for example, you can actually spend time at home, you know, to keep building on your skills. You can keep learning. If you fail at it, you move forward, you keep going. So as long as you're failing forward, as long as you realize that when you're failing, it's just telling you how not to do something, and then you can you know, leave that as an option, and then go on to know how exactly you should do it. So failing is something that I would say has even helped my career as well, because it just made me realize that, you know what, it's not, failing isn't bad after all, you know. So thank you so much for that. So I think the next thing I would like to ask is, you know, what skills have actually made you excel in coding? You know, what would you say has helped you in your journey? I know it's kind of linked to the question we just asked, you know, in terms of transferable skills, but what would you say has made the difference in terms of you learning how to code? Sorry, please excuse me for a second.
What transferable skills, Frances?
I would say it's pretty much linked to what we just spoke about. Being consistent, I think, is also very, very important. one thing I personally have learned to do is to always code, even when I'm not at work, during weekends, even if it's just a simple problem. Just keeping that in mind, that you have to keep your brain active, you have to keep your analytical skills sharp. And there are so many websites, there are so many resources online that you can subscribe to, that they would send you coding problems every day, that you don't even have to sit down and actually code it, but just think about the problem, think about it maybe on your way to work or your way to school. Just think about, okay, how would I solve this problem? And I feel like those little things done very consistently always make a big difference. So I'll say that's the only addition I'll add to that.
For me, it's always keep being in the know, right? What I mean by being in the know is, if you're someone who doesn't use it on a day-to-day basis, like in my situation, I use it time and time again, but maybe not as frequently as maybe Frances does. You know, if it's not like the core of your role, what I'll say is just keep practicing and look for opportunities to bring it into your work. So for example, what I'll do is I would look for, what am I doing? What some of my day-to-day tasks that I can automate using my coding skills?
Yeah.
And I just want to quickly say that when they say coding, don't always think of those big programming languages sometimes, like JavaScript, HTML, SQL, and all of those C++. Yeah, they're all nice, Python, yeah. But do you know that even in Excel, you can simplify your processes? If you use Excel sheets a lot, you can write a simple piece of code in Visual Basic. A matter of fact, that was how I kind of started. Yes, in university I did a little bit of Fortran, but my major coding experience started when I had to, it was a project I had to do for my master's, and they said, "Essay, this is our problem, we want you to solve using Visual Basic." I was like, "What's Visual Basic?" And they was like, "Oh, you didn't know that you could write a bit of code behind Excel?" I was like, "No." Interesting. And it just started from there. So don't wait until you get that massive like web developer and all those fancy things. Look for simple problems. I bet a lot of people use Excel sheets to do tons and tons of things. Try to do that to keep you going, right? Until you get that maybe big dream job of yours where you actually have to then use all those advanced programming languages. What that will help you do is it will help to sharpen your logical thinking, because that's a muscle that you need to develop over time. And if you leave it, it'll kind of just go stale. And it happens with most developers, most people that code every day, is once you stop coding for a while and you come back to it, it's always like, wow, was that me? So just keep at it, continue learning.
And I would also say, be curious and question things.
Yes.
I know maybe a lot of the people watching this live broadcast right now, they probably come from backgrounds where you're not taught to question things. You're taught to just take things as they are. But I want to encourage everyone that is listening here, question things, find out why things are the way they are. Like, just be curious. Always try to know why, and try to find out the building blocks of certain things. That's how you find out what the basic principles are. And when you know what basic principles are, you can build on them and use them to just make something beautiful. So be curious, be curious, question things around you, question systems. Why does this thing work the way it works? And is there a way we can make it better? Those kind of questions, always have them at the back of your mind anywhere you go, not even just about your work or anything, just in your day-to-day life. You're on a bus or anything, you ask yourself, is there any way this thing can be better, this process can be better, how can I make it better, what can I do? And I feel like it's very important to ask those questions, and once you get in the habit of asking those questions and being curious, I don't think solving problems that's the first step towards solving problems.
Yeah, I really love what you guys have said. I mean, I'll call that critical reasoning, just thinking about things and problem solving. And these are really the skills of the future of work. So, it's not even about coming here to find out about coding a lot. These are things, I feel like the principles you apply in coding, these are the things that will be relevant in the future. Just your ability to question things, critical reasoning, your problem solving skills. It's so profound. And I'd just like to share my own example as well in terms of when you guys talked about, getting a project to work on, to learn and all of that. Like, my first time that I really started thinking a lot about programming and all of that was when I was baking. Like, you can't even believe, I told you, like, I share this all the time. It was when I was baking, and I just found I noticed that, okay, everywhere, like, because I learned how to bake in 2 different places, and in all those places they'll tell you for a 6-inch cake, these are the ingredients that you need to use. For a 12-inch cake, these are the ingredients you need to use, this amount of eggs, this amount of flour, this amount. And one day I was just like, oh my god, this is just a lot of data. Can I not just develop something on Excel that I can just type, okay, I want to bake a 12-inch chocolate cake, what ingredients should I use? And I actually did it. I did it on Excel, and it was really good because, so for me, I just found it exciting. I just did fruit cake, chocolate cake, banana cake or whatnot, and then I wrote the ingredients. So once you do for 6 inches, you just need to multiply it for 12 inch, for 18 inches and all of that. So it was just so good for me. It was, and that's something as little as that, so it doesn't matter what your field is, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter. I feel like as long as there is a process, there is data, you can always think about how to improve it, how to make it better, it's just, so it starts from anything little. If you want to learn how to code, just think about it. Could be fashion, it could be, it can really be applied in anything. It's so interesting, so yeah, don't feel like you need to do one very complex project. Just start from what you're already very familiar with, because developing something from what you're familiar with, in fact, that's the easy way to go about it, because you know what you're trying to build. All you need to do is to just convert it into the language, that it will be able to help you do that. So thank you so much for that. And just linked to, so I have a question here from Kenny, which is linked to the next question I was going to ask you. It was around programming language. Let me just try to find a question. Is there any particular programming language companies use more? Java, Python, and the likes. And the question I really wanted to ask is, what programming languages are good? Where do you start from? So what would you say to that?
I would say it depends on the company. One, it depends on what they want to do. Take Netflix for instance. They do a lot of front end work, they do a back end, they do apps. So they might need a very versatile language that transcends all their needs, right? So it depends on who you are working for and the needs of the company, right? Personally, now having said that, I think Python has indeed gained some popularity. A lot of people have learned about Python, and that's maybe Python. I would say Python is even way more popular in the data science world as opposed to web development and all the other interesting bits. So again, it depends on the sector that you are looking at and what you want to do with this language. Another reason why I would go for Python is because it's, in my opinion, it's really simple to understand. Literally, you're using English terms like
exactly,
read, stop, if this, else. It's so straightforward, and that's how I learned. I always say, like, for people who are just starting out, I always encourage Python because Java and the rest may appear a little bit daunting. If you already are scared of coding as it is, and you think it's something so vague, going into Java might not exactly be the best thing for you. Just my 2 cents.
For a start. You can progress into it, but at least start from something easier.
Or if you want a challenge, head on.
Go for it. Frances, what would you say?
To be honest, I would say it depends on the individual. It depends on you as a person. I know people that started coding with Java and they're just so excellent today. But I personally started with Python because I remember sometime in 200 level, my second year university, that was the first time I tried to code, and I tried to code in Java, and I was like, what is all this? So I just
really classic. Everything is complex.
Life is never that hard. But I genuinely know people who started with Java and they're excellent. So it depends on you. I personally felt more comfortable with Python because I felt it was more relatable. It felt like English to me. It felt like I was just talking to the computer. So I personally went with Python, and it really depends on you whoever is watching, and and what you're comfortable with, and what language you think would be best. But I personally, and I'm a bit biased, but I would recommend Python.
Yeah, and thank you so much for that. And just to tie it back to what they have said previously as well, don't forget that coding is actually about the logic behind it. So at the end of the day, when you learn Python, you can actually easily learn another programming language because you're applying the same principles. As long as you understand, how you understand how to break down your problem into little chunks. If this happens, then this, branching, looping, repeating things, it's, I saw something, coding simplified, and I was just saying that coding is just about three things. I can't remember. I think sequencing, looping, and branching. Literally, that's what you do. All you're doing in coding is just those three things. Either you're saying after this, then this should happen. After this, then it should happen. That's sequencing. And then the next is branching. If this happens, then do this. If that happens, then do that. And then looping, repeating it. So, if you begin to understand that, that's kind of like the structure of everything you're trying to, of course, it becomes more complex, but that's like the foundation, just those three things. So, by the time you're learning languages, you know that you're just building, it's a logic that is helping you, and then Python is just how you're communicating that logic, to that programming language. So, Java becomes complex because something very simple that, you can do in like 5 lines in Python. For Java, you're still trying to build a class, you're still trying to do this, so it can get very complex, but obviously it depends as well too. But I'm just trying to say that you can transition between coding languages once you start getting a very good hang of. That's why a lot of people can eventually code in multiple, but they'll tell you that, okay, this is their preferred language, to code. So thank you. Okay, yeah, carry on.
Just to ask what Vinny said, I just thought of an example. Again, it boils down to the logic first. It's like Java is English, or no, Python is English, and Java is French, Spanish,
Chinese even.
Whereby you want to say in English, you just hello is hello, but in let's say Chinese is ni hao, is 2 words. So it's like it's it's the same thing you want to say, but in different language you might require more syllables or more words to say what you need to say. So again, like she said, it's understanding those foundation, and that's what I always do typically, and I'll advise you is if you're going to code, kind of have a plan. And that's why you see in most companies like Google, they have like whiteboards and all of those fancy stuff that we call geeky and stuff. But what they're actually doing is draw it out, take the message out from your brain and put it on a piece of paper. It helps you simplify things. Because if you're thinking about the logic in your head, sometimes you can, your brain is doing multiple things too much. Kind of put it out on the paper before you then now go and say, okay, now how do I translate it into the language that the computer understands? And then you can now pick whatever language and then go for it. And you see that even in interviews, all the techniques, they want you to actually speak out your thought process as opposed to just writing the code.
So true.
They want to see. So you might not even necessarily get the coding part, but you get the job. Why? Because they see that you think logically.
Yeah.
That is so true. So true. Did you want to add anything else?
No, I think
okay.
you said everything.
Yeah. So so another very interesting question is, people ask, Esther and Frances, you guys finished the first class, I was saying that. So I really want to, and based on your experience and what you've seen in the industry and everything, does grade actually matter? People's first degree, does it matter? If you finish with the first class, second class of our, third class and all of that, how important is this in the real world?
I'll say it doesn't matter. Like if you finish with a third class, it doesn't matter. If you read history, it doesn't matter. If you have a degree in dance, it doesn't matter. As long as you can think logically and you are willing to put in the work, you are consistent, you are excellent, it doesn't matter. I've seen people who don't even have a college degree, they don't have any university degree, and they're doing excellently well at their jobs, and they are coding, they are programming, they are solving very, very massive problems. So I just want to say that don't let your background discourage you or hold you back or box you. Feel free to explore, feel free to try it out if it's something that you feel like you want to try out. Don't hold back because of your degree, your grade, or your background. In fact, I think your background even brings a different perspective to your work, because for someone who studied only computer science and the person is so focused on computer science, you are different in the sense that if you're able to learn and grow and program and apply those computer science principles, and you also have your own background that you can bring to the table, it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Francis.
Another thing that I'll add to that, and I'll say, what your degree tells most employers, I won't say all employers because I don't know, I'm not an employer myself, but I think what it tells them is that you're teachable.
Yeah.
And that you have the ability to learn. And that's what really a degree is all about, and you notice that some of these companies these days, they're doing away with this degree as a requirement.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're doing away with it because they found that a lot of people just devote themselves to learning how to code in a matter of 6 months, and they're already gurus, and they can do the job that someone who went to uni for 4 years or even 10 years, depending on maybe you went ahead and did a PhD. You know? So it's the same thing. It doesn't, at the end of the day, what I've realized working is that yes, your education matters and it helps you lay down some of the principles, but it's not just that. It's like when you get to it, it's like a whole new world entirely.
Thank you.
And you just see that, okay, it's like you just go into survival mode. It's like, okay, what do I need to do? And then you just start doing it. And sometimes it has nothing to do with what you studied.
Yeah.
That is exactly what is happening to me right now.
Yeah.
I went into this role and I was like, petroleum engineering, okay, which Darcy equation am I going to be solving? And I was all and the first thing they're like, oh, we're doing XYZ, this is what you're going to do. That I was like, I'm not going to lie. The first 2 months, I complained. Not to my boss, to myself. I was like, what am I doing here? I've chosen the wrong career path. They've made a mistake. Or, I was just really fighting it. And until I came to that point, I was like, okay, Essie, you can't fight this anymore. What do they need you to do? And I was like, I need to be able to, first of all, I need to be able to hold a conversation with them, right? So I need to understand this coding language. What is it all about? And what did it take me? I just took 3 days, went online, Googled it. How do I learn how to code in Python? Literally, and that's how it came to this, and I'm excelling at my job right now.
Yeah, that's so good. Google is always to the rescue. Like, in fact, and another word of caution I'd like to say is that, in fact, I feel like sometimes our good grades can limit us, So, I mean, I know sometimes it's very easy to, put yourself under pressure because you feel like you finished the first class, so everyone is like, in fact, it happens to me all the time, but like, even things that are not related to mechanical engineering, everyone's like, but you finished the first, I didn't finish the first class in Greek, it's not, so there's that pressure, but I'll just like to say that regardless of your grade, and this is for people that, maybe finish the first class and you're afraid to fail, because I think that that's something that's very, if you did really well, you're like, oh my God, how would it be heard of that I failed? Leave all that aside. See, like they said, once you enter the work life, it's survival of the fittest. Some people might be very, but you finish your class, you should know this. You should shut them up, or in a polite way. Everyone is here to learn. No one is a master at everything. So don't let anybody put you under pressure because you had a good way. You finished the 2-1, you finished the first class, so therefore you should know everything. Don't put yourself under pressure. Pace yourself. As long as you're committed. Third class, 2-1, you didn't even finish, you've not had a degree, you couldn't finish and all of that, it doesn't matter. Your mindset is so important. Like, what you believe about yourself is so important, So I would like to just say that, we shouldn't be limited by our degrees. Just to add to what they said, as long as we always have that opportunity. It's like you come into a crowded world, you have a fresh opportunity to show yourself, to shape your life in a direction that you want. So don't be limited or hindered, by either the fact that you've done very well or either the fact that you haven't done very well. You can always build a new life for yourself, in a new space. So yeah. Cool. Thank you so much. And the next question will be that, okay, we've already taken, would you say, so I think this will be the final question before I go to ask, take the questions that people have typed already. Would you say that coding is now relevant to every career? I mean, based on your experience. I mean, this is not to put you on the spot. I know you guys are, but thinking about the essay, you're a petroleum engineer, and now we're talking about the fact that you code, and Frances, industrial engineer, we're talking about. So I'm just saying, like, on a broad scale and looking at the future of work, would you say that coding has now become something that is relevant to everyone, or what would you say about that?
My simple answer would be yes, and it might not be a popular opinion. It may not be a popular opinion of everyone, but I would say yes. Why? Because I feel like the world is really advancing, and most industries are seeing that. And what that does for you as an individual is that it keeps you ahead of the curve. So, regardless of what you know or what you think, some of these things are going to get automated eventually. So, I feel it is relevant in every career, and it is really. I'm really excited that I found myself in this path, really, because it's not one that I would have chosen for myself, because I was really limiting myself right from the get-go. But I'm really happy that I'm here and I'm seeing the world of possibilities that's associated with it.
Okay, thank you so much, Essie. Frances?
I personally believe that always knowing how to code is always helpful, regardless of wherever you find yourself. I feel like that mindset, it forces you. It forces you to think properly. It forces you to think in a logical mindset, and it forces you to think of endless possibilities, edge cases. What if this happens? What if that doesn't happen? And I feel like that skill is relevant for life itself, like living your life. And it forces you to think. And I think regardless of anything anyone says, I feel like it's a very useful skill to have. Yeah.
Okay. Amazing, thank you so much. So I have a few questions here. Some questions, if the question is not related to the subject, I might not be able to take it, but I will try to take as many questions as possible. Somebody asks that. Oh, okay, those are comments. Can you simplify what DevOps means? Okay, they are guests for today, but okay, I can just quickly chip it in, for that question about can you simplify what DevOps is? And I've seen a question around robotics process automation. These are topics that we're not discussing today, but be on the lookout actually, because I've had robotics process automation in mind for a very long time. So we might just have a fireside chat with a specialist in that, of which I know a few people. So just be on the lookout for that, regarding RPA. So we'll go into details. No one here is an RPA specialist, but we would have that in mind. And so regarding DevOps, I mean, again, today is not about DevOps, but DevOps, I would simply put, is actually more of a culture than anything else. It's more about the culture that you're trying to, put in place as far as software development is concerned. It's very similar to agile methodology. So which means, you're not doing things in a waterfall method, like you're not finishing one aspect before you start something else. So as far as software development lifecycle is concerned, the way it's always been done has been, you design first, and then you build, and then you test, and then you deploy. I might not be saying it's the right sequence, but that's the idea, and then you have everything all done. But the whole idea of agile is that instead of doing that, you work in chunks, and then you have sprints. So therefore, you just pick a piece of work you want to do, go through that process of design, build, test, and if it doesn't work, you can always start again. So you're not finishing, you're not building the whole thing, designing the whole thing, building the whole code, testing the whole code, and then at the end of the day, you find that it's not working. So we do it in small chunks instead, and then we iterate. So DevOps is very similar to that as well, just integrating the way software is deployed. So DevOps actually means development and operations. So it's an integration of development, which is the communication, everyone that is involved in building the code, and then operations team making sure that it works. So working together rather throughout the delivery of the software. So how it was done before, again, as far as DevOps is concerned, is that the two teams are separate. So a completely different people will develop the code, a completely different people will do the operations and see how it works. And you're wondering that, there's always a clash between those two parties. But working together from the beginning as development and operations reduces all that. Again, I'm just trying to put it simply. DevOps is quite technical, so I don't want to start boring people. But when we have a DevOps, fireside chat, we can go into details about that. But today we're focusing on coding. But that's a quick answer to your question. Okay. So aside coding, what other skills does one need to be a cloud DevOps engineer? Oh, okay, we have more questions about cloud DevOps engineer. Would you recommend a certification path? I would say that I'm going to also leave that question to a discussion when we're talking about cloud DevOps. So be on the lookout, please. I don't want us to leave the topic, but please, if you have questions related to coding, programming, please bring them in, and of course, we would answer them. One other question I have for you, Ese and Frances, is this: what can people do now to prepare themselves? We've talked about the fact that in the future is very likely that a lot of roles require some level of coding, or even just the logical thinking and all of that. I know that in our audience we have graduates, we have people that are just, some people are actually in school, there's ASU strike, they don't know what to do with their time and all of that. And I would say that, what would you say is important for people to do now to prepare themselves for the future of work? Yeah.
I would say just start by building projects. There are many projects, many example projects online, on Kaggle, there are so many, even if it's just practicing HackerRank questions, just throwing yourself at different problems, just diving deep, just coding. Basically, the best way to learn how to code is to code.
I like that.
So just diving deep and throwing yourself at problems.
That's 100, by the way. What I'll also say is, something that works for me is if I have kind of like a motivator at the very beginning. So rather than just, yes, if you're the kind of person that you don't need external motivation, just go for it, right? But another thing I always do is I always look out for, maybe I can start, you don't have to wait till you finish to look for the role that you want to apply for. Pick one company, look for the role, look for what is required. Or you might not obviously meet the requirements, but start looking at it. What do they require? And then use that as a motivation, like a motivator, and work towards that. So if they say you need to be able to use HTML, blah 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 blah, that would then say, okay, if I need that job, I need to start learning HTML. And then you simply go on Google and say, how do I learn HTML, or HTML for dummies? And that's, I'm not even joking, that was how it started. When I finished uni, I was looking for petroleum engineering jobs, but I was also looking for data science jobs. And as I was looking for those jobs, I saw some of the requirements. They're like, oh, you must be able to code in Python, blah 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 blah. I was like, okay. And what did I do? I went on Udemy, so it's a platform, and I learned Python. So that was my first introduction to Python. On my own, I thought about it. I was like, yes, I would love to learn how to code, but sometimes we as human beings, we get lazy. And until we have a driving force, we don't actually start to do something. So don't be like me. That's the point I'm trying. Don't wait till you finish school and you're like, okay, what am I going to do now? Now is the best time to start. And like Frances said, just start coding. If you don't have the resources, maybe internet or some of those things, because I have to consider that not everybody is in the Western world where internet is a little bit cheap. I said, I cannot be taking all those online courses. Like Bemi said, she started with the example of the cake.
On Excel.
Excel, just code something, just start. What that will help you do, like I said, is it will strengthen your logical thinking muscle.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I'll say something that has also helped me is my network, surrounding myself with people that are very motivated. So sometimes when I feel like I'm dropping the ball, like I see them and they're like, what's wrong with you? So we motivate each other, we learn together, we go for coding boot camps, we go for hackathons, we just basically drive each other. So I think that's important. Very important.
Yeah, and coding boot camps are really nice. They're very intense, but it pushes you to learn a lot. So if you have access, you can afford it, then by all means, register for a coding boot camp. It's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So we have another question here. Someone is trying to ask, which of the two is easier to learn, JavaScript or Python?
Wow.
I would say
Python. Python is the easiest
To be
programming
honest,
language ever.
I feel you can really learn anything if you're open-minded.
Yeah, but
And
which one is easier?
It depends on the individual.
Wow. Python.
Exactly. I don't want to think twice. I feel like when it comes to ease of programming, I just feel like Python is just, in my opinion, I mean, obviously, we have different.
In my opinion,
Yeah, I think Python is definitely easier. Python is easier. Okay, so I'll just give us a few more time if we have any more questions. It was just supposed to be a brief conversation with Essie and Frances to find out their experience. So please, if you have any more questions, feel free to put them in the chat box as we begin to wrap up this session. I also just want to check that I don't have any more questions for you. Okay, so I wanted to add something to what you guys said about the future and how to get started. And I feel like talking about the future of work generally, like if you actually Google the trends, if you Google the trends, you will see that there are some particular jobs that people are already saying that in the next 20 to 30 years won't be available anymore and all of that. And even the jobs that are now, a lot of jobs will be taken over by robots. And but the thing is that the jobs that remain would be jobs that require a lot of creativity, jobs that require, and of course on the other side, a lot of empathy too as well, that humans cannot really replicate into robots. But for the non people oriented jobs, if I can put it that way, other kind of jobs require a high level of critical thinking, analytical reasoning, and all of these things. And like Frances and Essie have said, it's when you start coding, you start thinking in a certain way. Like it just begins to make you question. You're not just looking at things ordinarily anymore. You're always thinking of different scenarios, different possibilities. What if it fails? What if it doesn't happen? So even if your purpose of learning how to code is just to boost your critical thinking and analytical reasoning skills, it's totally worth it, because those are the skills that will be in high demand when a lot of things have been automated, when robots are able to do so many things that humans now do. So surely, like, the world as we know it now, of course with COVID, we all know that the world has changed, and of course there is so much going on in the tech space right now. So I feel like to just keep ourselves abreast of that, the soft skills, we should start thinking about that, boosting our critical thinking, boosting our analytical reasoning, boosting our logical, asking questions. Like what, I feel like in our culture we're not really taught to ask questions, and I feel like that's another thing that has been a shift, and but yes, asking questions, beginning to just think in a more structured and logical way, so definitely will help us. And actually, talking about culture too, I think I would like to pull out one question for that from both of you. I mean, we all schooled in Nigeria, up to like our graduate level, and now we found ourselves working in a completely different, culture and environment. So what would you say has been your biggest lesson in that experience, like moving continents, really moving from Africa in the academic system and the way we do things, and then shifting like basically changing your world, into a completely different world where, you now have a more cultural, you now have different cultures, diversity and all of that. What has been your biggest takeaway, your biggest lesson?
That it's okay to not be perfect. And to not get it right the first time. And you can always ask for help. I don't know why, but I feel like maybe in Nigeria, like how I saw the world then was in a very competitive light. Like I don't want to tell this one what I'm working on because the person is still
yeah, that's actually true. That's true. That's true. Yeah.
What I've noticed, particularly in the company where I work, is they really encourage collaboration, and you really need that in the tech space, in the coding world. Sure. You can't always have it all figured out. You might have a code you're trying to solve. You might be on it for weeks if you try to do it on it, or you might even never crack it. Sure. But that's why there are all these communities online, and I think that needs to change. Like, I don't know, maybe I don't want to point fingers, but we need to break free from that. It's about me alone. I must make it to the top by myself.
Life is generally not even that way.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
We all need people, and
So what would be your biggest, lesson changing continents?
I have so many lessons. I'm trying to pick which one.
Okay, you can share one or two. We still have a few more minutes, so.
I'll say open-mindedness. Just because someone would do something differently than you would do, it doesn't make the person wrong, right? Learning to be open-minded, learning to put yourself in people's shoes and try to understand their own perspective is so powerful. And this is not just with coding, it's just generally with the culture, like learning to understand where other people are coming from. I think also learning that I don't have to have everything in my head, especially, I don't know what everybody's experience with education is here, but my own experience with education in Nigeria was more like everything has to be in your head, like when it's time for the exam, go there and then just scribble everything down. But that's not really the way to learn. The way to learn is to actually understand the principles behind things. It's not just about forcing information into your head and regurgitating it. So I feel like when we understand that, it gives our minds more room to actually think, to question things. When you know that you don't have to have all the information in your head, you really don't have to have that, especially if you have Google or you have stuff that resources that you can leverage on. And I feel like those are the main points.
And be open to ask for help. Really,
it's okay.
It's okay not to know everything. Like you're not trying to impress anybody, or it's okay. We're all humans. We don't know.
There's nothing new.
Yeah,
someone has done it already.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's also something else about coding.
Something
there is
similar.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That you can always leverage on. That's so good. And if I was to answer that question, I would say it's still similar to what I said earlier. I think, and what we've talked about, I think for me, one of the things I've learned, and again, this might not be a continent change thing. I think it might just be a personality thing. But this side of my personality found more expression, in Africa than in here. So it's questioning things really. I wasn't used to doing that, because like I said, it might be a personality thing. People grow up in Africa and have this ability to really, really do question things. But I've always had the mindset of you have to be a certain way. Certain things are acceptable, certain things are not. Basically just living up to a particular standard that was set by people, not by your own personal goals. So, coming here, and I always share this experience all the time. The first time I resumed work, my line manager, bless him, and we had our first conversation, and one of the first things he told me was that, I don't like it when people say yes to me all the time, and when they tell me yes to everything I ask them to do. That was a huge blow, on my face. I'm like, what? I'm supposed to say yes, and that's supposed to make you happy. And he was like, no, I want you to question things. I may be wrong. So I couldn't believe my line manager could tell me he could be wrong. So he was more keen about me being able to, get. So it was not an ego thing for us to, drive things forward in the workplace. It was more of, whoever is right, and that has been, the shift for me, because I've never really seen it that way. I've always had the mindset that, there's even an adage in my culture that says that, an adult is always right. So, that has been the mindset, So coming here and my boss telling me on day one that, what, I don't want you to say yes to me all the time. If I'm wrong, tell me no. Ask me questions. And sometimes, when people more senior than me give me tasks to do, and I just say, okay, I'll do it. A lot of times they've called me back and said, do you know why I told you to do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Why did you ask? And I'm like, oh, are you serious? I'm just supposed to get the job done. But, they've always, so that culture, that mindset shift, and it's really helped me, even in my faith, as a believer, it's helped me to realize that, man, don't just take what everybody's telling you. Ask things for yourself, search your own, find out things for yourself, and it just makes it more solid, when you know the reason why you're doing things. So that has been my own, greatest lesson, Okay. Somebody finally, this is the last question because we have just 5 more minutes, and thank you everyone that has been with us from the beginning. I'm sorry I've been looking at my phone because I'm trying to get the questions out, So the last one is, okay, how do I get the best resources? Is there any particular website you recommend? Because it can be difficult to get the best from a lot of resources available today.
I didn't hear you. I'm glad you asked that question, or whoever sent that in. That is an amazing question. I'll just go right to
James. Yeah.
first things first, you need to understand how do you learn. When you know how your learning pattern, then you can pick the right resources. So having said that, for me personally, I'm not the kind of person that wants to get bogged down by reading books and all of those things. I'm not that kind of person who learns that way. I learn by doing. So I prefer an interactive platform whereby they teach me a few things, and not too long, they're short bits of videos, and then they give me a code. What that does is by the time you type in your code and all that, you get excited because you feel like, oh my god, I'm already coding, and then you keep at it, and that will help you, get through the course. So some of the platforms I've used, which is surprising, is actually LinkedIn Learning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really cool.
LinkedIn Learning has tons of courses, and I actually like them. Then I also used Udacity. I also used Udemy and Coursera. Coursera is kind of the list on the list of that I've used basically. And then I learned on my own and by asking people. So the very first thing I did when I started coding was I took someone's existing code. Right? I didn't want to start from scratch because it was a little bit daunting. I took someone's existing code. Told the person to run me through it. He explained a few things. I was like, oh, okay. And then I started removing stuff. Go on Google. How do I convert columns to rows? And next thing it will give you like codes that people have already written, and then you start plugging it in, and you kind of what that does is it kind of helps you build your confidence. Like I'm doing something and it's working. So having said that, these are what I've used: LinkedIn Learning, Udacity, Udemy, Coursera. That's how I taught myself how to code.
Thank you so much for that. Frances, resources?
For me, I would say, first of all, watching lots of YouTube videos, then just get my mind prepared to understand concepts, data structures and algorithms, then Udemy, then I started copying and pasting code from Stack Overflow.
Yes. I mean, yes. Sorry, just go on.
Yeah, so I mean, it's very helpful because especially if you're kind of scared or you're wondering, how do I get into this world where it's so vast and everything. So I basically would go to Stack Overflow. I'll see already written code and what it does, and then I'll literally copy, paste it on my IntelliJ. So that's how I started doing. And from there, you just learn. You just know how to do certain things, and the more you throw yourself at problems and try to build your own projects. Literally, like, take a project and say, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to build this website from scratch. When you start to do things like that, you learn and you become better, and it doesn't end. You don't stop learning. You don't just one day know how to code everything. So it's a journey that where the learning curve is really steep. So pacing yourself and just knowing that every day you're going to learn something, and that's just about it. It's not an end. There's no end to it. You have to keep learning and becoming better, growing, and
And I just want to quickly add, this does not mean that you can't still go the route of getting a computer science degree, because that in itself still has some advantages. While we might not have taken the traditional route, you can do an online degree, a computer science degree. What that will help you do is I will actually ground you in the basics, the principles that guide these things, because we were learning on the go. It's like we're learning and learning, but people that already have that foundation, it's kind of easier. It's kind of easier. You know why is done that way.
And if I can add to that as well, yes, I mean, it's very valid points. Another thing I found myself doing times past has been to actually check the curriculum of a computer science degree and then carve my own learning based on that. So just to fill in the gaps, because like you guys said, we're learning on the go. So sometimes when I struggle with something, I'll be like, okay, fine. So I actually pulled it out from, again, do this for the best of schools, Harvard, MIT, exactly. It's online. You can see the curriculum, things that they learn, and you can actually Google those subjects and see a YouTube video that actually explains it. So if you don't have the opportunity to, actually do a proper online education, you can structure your learning in the computer science, in the technology field that way. Check what the curriculum says and, begin to fill in all the gaps as you learn on the job. So thank you so much, Esther and Frances. It has been a beautiful time. If you guys enjoyed it, please, let's see your Let's see your comments. Let's see your dancing comments. Let's see what you have to say if you enjoyed it. Yes, your dancing smileys rather, you know. And this brings us to the end of the show. And like I said, sorry, there's some questions I couldn't answer, so that I couldn't take on. It won't take us off topic, but just connect with us on social media. All our social media handles are at the Ops Network. So connect with us and be on the lookout. The questions that you want to find out about might just be the next webinar that we'll be doing on Fireside Chat. So make sure you do connect with us. And you know, I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone. I can see you. I can see Abisola, Kenny, Yetunde. I have to call your names, Lota. I can see you. I can see you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Modupe. Thank you, Anu. Thank you, Tolu. Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Ethel, you know, Henry, you know, everyone for joining us today. Mary Christian, Etiosa, John, thank you so much. Yes, thank you for joining us. Thank you very much. So this brings us to the end, and thank you. So connect with us on social media. Please make sure you do that. We are at the Ops Network. And please make sure that you also share this video with your network that you feel like they might find this useful and people are interested in things like this. Okay, bye everyone. Let's just say bye. Bye. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Benny. Thank you.